Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to day 3, part 3 of this webinar series on the overview of developing an e-commerce strategy for China. I'm very happy to have our guest speaker, Siara from 86 Connects, who is going to be speaking today on branding. Branding is everything. But just to recap a little bit the last 2 days, in case you missed them. So on Monday, we were talking about brand protection on the marketplaces. Well, brand protection in general, but then brand protection specifically on the marketplaces and what you can do. Yesterday, we were talking about business models and the variety of different types of things you can do, as well as creating then a phased approach to the Chinese market. You don't have to do everything at once. You can create a phased approach and create a phased business model going into the market. And then today we've got Annie talking about branding, and tomorrow we've got Ryan, whose firm is a TP, and they are going to be talking about how it works, how to evaluate marketplaces, what types of marketplaces there are, and physically, how does it actually work. Before we start today's session though, again, for Annie's benefit, Annie, I think you can also open up the chat box so you get an understanding. It would be wonderful if people in the audience could tell who they are. You did it for me Monday and Tuesday. If you would be so kind to do it for Annie as well. If you are a newbie to China, it means that you have done 0 transactions in China, but you're evaluating what the opportunity is. If you are a startup in China, it means you have transacted in China, either directly from your home office or headquarter, or actually with an entity in China. And then the experienced China hands are those of us that have been in China for a number of years. So just opening the chat. Douglas, thank you for saying it again, is a startup. Bettina's a newbie. Nick is a startup. More of you would like to give us feedback, that would be great for Annie as well. Please don't hesitate to share. Use your fingers and type away. Thank you, Keith. How the webinar works. So let me start off with the technical side. We are using Zoom meeting. So if you get any form of connectivity issues, there's nothing I can do for you. My only suggestion is log off, log back in, log off, log back in. And just know that we are recording today's session. So in case you miss anything, you can go up on our YouTube channel later and look at the full recording. If I run into any issues, Annie is co-host. So she will continue with the presentation. If Annie runs into any issues, I am a co-host. So we will continue and I'll entertain you until Annie comes back, basically, to finish off the presentation. But just know that the goal is that we will be coming back on. It will take usually about 1 minute to 2 minutes for Wi-Fi's to reboot or Zooms to reboot, so bear with us. But we will be coming back on to finish. I completely understand if you have to sign off due to time issues. Just know we're recording. It'll be up on our YouTube channel by the end of the day. We are here to educate you. I have not seen Annie's presentation, so it's a nice surprise for me as well today. She told me it's interactive. So that's why I was doing this first slide, to get you guys to become interactive. So please be prepared, be interactive with her as she is presenting today. We're here to educate you. We're here to give you advice, tools, tips about what you need to do in the world of branding in China. And like I've said in the last 2 days, people underestimate the amount of branding that is required in China. I don't say that in terms of financial resources. I say that in terms of you need a brand strategy to get consumers to buy your products or services. Without that brand strategy, you're not going to get anywhere. Now, some of you might say, and again, I'm not a brand strategist. I'm getting this feedback from companies that are talking to me about what they want to do in China. Even if you are selling to Chinese consumers from your home jurisdiction, and you want to take that next step to do something more concrete in China, it does not mean that what you are doing now will work by having something set up in China. You'll have to change that whole strategy concept, okay? I'm going to stop there because this is Annie's role. but it's a frustration of mine when I am talking to people and they're really underestimating the branding side of things, okay? Just to note, about the financial side, Annie, I'm not sure if you're going to touch on that at all, but we did a webinar in January about the financial resources you might need to develop a branding strategy. So Annie, if you want to touch on that a little bit today, or if you don't, just know that there is this webinar up on our YouTube channel already in terms of B2B, B2C, how much you might want to invest. Not a lot, especially if you're starting new. For those of you that don't know me, very briefly, I'm Christina Kola-Kalucha, Head of Business Advisory at Woodburn Accountants and Advisors. I'm a leading expert on inbound investment into China, meaning foreign investors going into China. I have 17 years of corporate services experience in China, specifically based out of Shanghai, where we do all of the administrative work and paperwork that's involved around maintaining your business and controlling your business model. I'll leave it there because I want Annie to take over, but just a last note, I've launched a book, that was my spare time in 2020, called The 9 Superpowers to Succeed in China. And it's just all what I believe are the 9 most important principles you need to abide by when doing business in China. So there are tools, tips, and basically a checklist for what you should be doing to enter China, protect your business, protect yourself, and avoid as many obstacles that might come along your path and journey. So last but not least, the presentation today is about branding is everything. And I'm going to stop my share so Annie can take over. Annie, go ahead.
Right. Hi, guys. Good morning or good afternoon. I'm just going to set up my presentation. Right. So, Christina, just give me a heads up if you can see my screen properly.
It's perfect. It's good to go.
Excellent. So let me just get that set up. Hi, my name is Siara. I'm founder of 86 Connects, and today we're going to be bringing you about brand strategy for China. I see a lot of people in the chat box, you are a newbie or startup, so this presentation is good for you guys, so stay tuned. Just a little bit about myself, perhaps. I am founder of 86 Connects. We are a boutique business advisory firm in commercial and business development. We specialize in e-commerce and cross-border strategy for brands. And personally, I have over 12 years of career in developing client solutions and business solutions for the offline sectors. And now we are bridging both the online and the offline channel. I also host a video series called Bridge to Chinese Consumers. You can find this on YouTube and make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We released a video, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, with Christina, and we talked about everything about protecting your trademark and your brand. So make sure you check that out. But this video series, I invite entrepreneurs and business professionals to really discuss about the Chinese market and the Chinese consumer market. And our whole goal is to educate and give information. I certainly learn a lot from my guests as well. So make sure you have a look. I'm always open to topic suggestions. So drop me a line. I will share my contact details later. Drop me a line on topic discussion. So I will put that in our roadmap. Also, last but not least, we have developed a solution, a turnkey solution for niche brands or for brands that are wishing to test out the market. I'm not going to go into too much details now. Stay tuned all the way to the end. I'm going to talk about what Asbella Hub is about, but let's get started. So today's agenda, we're going to discuss on how to develop a brand strategy for China. The 5 common mistakes, and what does rebrand, rebuild, restart really mean? So stay tuned. So let's peel it back and really go back to what brand strategy is and what brand strategy really mean. If you are already a established business, I'm sure most of you the viewers are an established brand or business, I feel brand strategy and also protecting your brand is one of those things that gets overlooked at, because when you are looking at a new market, you look at number one, the opportunity, and number two, how do you market quickly and how do you sell quickly and get your return on investment. So I think you have to step back a little bit and understand what your brand strategy is and how you position your brand into the new market. So if you think about developing a brand like an onion, right, and it has different layers, that's what brand strategy is. So at the heart of your brand, it really defines on what your brand stands for. So you have the mission, you have your vision and your values. And at the core of the brand is what your brand is really about and how you position your brand for your consumers, to your consumers, as well as against your competitors, and what promise you are promising your customers. And at the identity stage is how you present your brand, how you present the voice of your brand. And that's, you know, developing the Chinese logo or the Chinese brand name, the images and the tagline. And because you've spent the time, the resources and the investment in this sector, make sure you protect those, the brand values, right? So, and I think Christina talked about this on Monday on her webinar, is about brand protection. So it's really about creating a solid foundation for your brand in the new market, China, and how you execute into this new market. So let me ask you a question. This is a very interactive webinar, so feel free to drop your answers or feel free to chat with us on the chat box. But let me ask you this question. How well do you know your customers? Right, you will know your customers in your local market, but let me ask you this question. How well do you know your customers in China? So we're going to be focused on the 4 C's today, which are company, customers, competitors, and communication. And I have one specific brand in mind, and I feel that this brand, how they have done their globalization brand strategy as well as localizing their brand strategy in China is very interesting. So I'm going to play a little game. It's called Guess the Brand. If you know what brand I'm talking about, put the name in the chat box. Christina knows the brand. And the first person that guessed the brand, I will buy you Christina's 9 Superpowers to Succeed in China book. It's a really good book. I've actually read it last weekend. I'm developing my superpowers. So stay tuned and let me know if you know the brand that I am talking about. Right, so again, this brand, I feel it's a very interesting case study. It's a very hot category right now in China. It's in the performance apparel wear. The sportswear category in last year generated 45 billion renminbi in sales, about 7 billion USD. And what I found interesting about this brand is, number one, they were founded 17 years after Nike established themselves in China. And today they are in the 8th position on Alibaba as the sportswear category on sales generated. This brand really pioneered the word leisure. So athletic wear and also leisure wear, everyday wear. They are a technical athletic apparel brand, and they put function then fashion. And the pain point that they really wanted to address was to create high level for high performance athletic, but you can also wear their garment for your everyday for your everyday use. So they really pioneered the word athleisure. So at the heart of this company, it's an experimental brand that ignites a community of people living the sweat life through sweat, grow, and connect. So remember these keywords, because it's going to be very important on how we look at how they have localized their brand strategy into China. The quality is the heart of who they are, and it shows up in their people, the conversations that they have with their consumers, as well as the product. So I will be showing you that as well. So let me ask you, and let me get into the first C, which is customers. Do you know your customers in China? Do you know the market in China? And do you know what drives the Chinese consumers towards your product or your services? So understand your customers in China is so important of brand strategy, marketing strategy, and developing a sustainable business in China. Don't assume that your target audience in your local market will be the same in China. Don't assume that the neighboring markets such as Hong Kong and Macau consumers are going to be the same in China. And don't assume China is one market. You know, consumers from the north is going to be very different to consumers from the south. Beijing, Guangzhou, they're very different. So understanding who your customers are, the behaviors, and also what drives them towards your products and your services is going to be vital. So some of the drivers to customers to your products are, for example, seduction is how much your brand character draws people in, you know, certain attraction towards your brand. Second driver, persuasion, is how your brand behaves in the world. Is your brand popular among certain consumer groups? Does your brand have certain connection? Third driver, emotional, is how strong your brand connect with people emotionally, like such as aspiration, innovation. I think Apple is a very good example in emotional connecting to their consumers. And last but not least is rational, how powerful your brand offering is, you know, the performance, the differentiation of your brand. So have you really thought about who your consumers are and what drives them towards your business and brand? Kristen, I'm going to ask, has anyone guessed who the brand is before I actually reveal it?
There's been no feedback so far. If you guys have any feeling of what the brand or who the brand is, type it in. She's already given a lot of hints. One person has made a suggestion.
Let me see. Lulu and Lemon. Oh, Alex, you're a cheater. Right. Okay. Fine, Alex, I'm going to buy you the book.
He probably went to Alibaba to see who was the eighth sports goods company.
100%. Not a problem. Alex, after you read the book, you have to review it on LinkedIn though. That's your only thing. So the brand that I am talking about is Lulu and Lemon. So I'm just going to give you an example on who their customers are in China, right? So they are females, 25 to 40-year-old, new middle class. They are well educated. They are yoga enthusiasts. So females that really live a well-being lifestyle. They live in the first tier and second tier cities, as well with an annual income of 100,000 RMB plus. And what drives consumers to choosing a sportswear brand? So you can see on the diagram on the right here, the three drivers are 1, material, 2, cutting, and 3, design. Material, cutting, and design. So Lululemon really did a study on who their consumers are in China and what drives the consumers to their product. So I'm going to show you an example on how they have translated this to their brand strategy and how they present themselves to the Chinese market. So on this page, it's Lululemon's Chinese website. You can actually go on it. I think it's lululemon.com.cn. And disclaimer, I am not a brand ambassador for Lululemon. They're not my client. I just feel that they have done the localization very well, and that's why I want to showcase their work. So if you go onto their Chinese website, you will see that the brand story and the three things that they emphasize are: one, the material they use, the technology of their garment and how they put materials together; three, design of their products and the processes. They really go into in-depth details. Another localization. So again, the main drivers for sportswear category in with Chinese consumers are material, cutting, and design, and how they have used that to localize. So for example, they have developed a completely new SKU called the Asian Fit to fit the Asian bodies. Right, they implemented the cutting and the pattern to tailor the Asian body proportion, as you can see on the diagram here on the right. They narrowed the waistbands, made this slightly longer and shorter in seam. So they really understood what their customers want and what drive the customers towards their brand. They localized their product design, and then they did the marketing to voice out to their consumers. So there are in stages. So first of all, understand what drives your customers, or first of all, understand who are your customers, and then what drives them towards your product and design. Let me give you another example in another different category. This category is in the food and beverage. They are an innovative condiment Lithuanian company. Let me just give you a little bit of background and a history about this company. So they were going to China for about 7 years, trying to sell their condiment. They've seen that the condiment industry or the condiment market in China was growing in sales, but they weren't picking up any traction. And the product development manager went to China and really trying to understand why they didn't have any traction in the trade shows, right? So they spend their money, their time, their research, their investment into going to these trade shows, and they weren't picking up any sales. And what he found was, after speaking to distributors, is that the customers didn't know how to use mayonnaise. They didn't know how to use their product. So understanding who your consumers are is so important to the market. So historically, Chinese will use mayonnaise. I know it sounds really, really weird, but they will use mayonnaise for fruit salad rather than the traditional salad and sandwiches, right? So when he found that, what he'd done was go back to his team locally, and then really developed a brand strategy, product strategy to localize their product and design into their market. And let me show you how they've done it. So the bottle on the left are their European design product, and here are their product for the Chinese market. You see the key difference? Let me point it out to you. So number one, he knew that the consumers didn't know how to use mayonnaise or their condiments. So they put an actual picture at the front of their bottle. So straight away, when you pick up the bottle, you know, this garlic dressing is for the salad, right? Number two, they found that the consumers found the smaller the quantity actually means it's more European. It means that it stands for more, it's more prestigious. So you can see this is a 460 gram bottle, and then on the Chinese localization is actually half the size, but I think it's around the same cost. I don't know. And also another thing that they implemented was the taste, because Chinese taste buds towards mayonnaise base material was much sweeter. They implemented the taste or the ingredients towards the Chinese taste buds. And I think they are now in their offline shelves in China, and they're actually just starting out in their business strategy. So they've really taken a long-term view on developing their business in China. So the third C I wanted to talk about is competitors. What is your competitive brand positioning in the Chinese market, and what value you are creating to your customers? And one thing that we use are social listening platforms in the digital marketing space. We use specifically Vfluencer because they analyze all of the social media platforms in China and specifically tailor their content for the Chinese market. So I quite like them. So if we have a look at taking Lululemon as an example and understand what our competitors are doing, I will be looking at examples like Nike or Under Armour. And if I have a look at what they are doing, I see that the Nike on the 16th of June had a tremendous spike in their social media strategy, or whatever they are doing on the social media platforms, right? So I will probably go delve into it on what they are doing. So if we have a look at on the 16th of June, they actually did a post, or Sina Weibo did a post on a Chinese footballer, Wei Lei, smashing Guam on the second round of Asia qualifying tournament for the 2022 World Cup. So, and they've mentioned a Nike bag, and that's what it caused the spike in social media and in influencers. So you know that your competitors are supporting or sponsoring high viewership sporting events, right? So understanding what your competitors are doing, and then understanding what drives your customers, and then really projecting that voice to your customers. So in comparison on how Lululemon do their communication strategy is that they use a lot of their in-store sales executives as ambassadors. So as you can see, these are all taken from Xiaohongshu, and across different offline store location, their sales executive do videos demonstrating on how to wear the product and giving demonstration about the product and the brand, so on and so forth, right? So that's how they communicate with their customers. Right, and last but not least is communication. After understanding who your customers are in China, understand what your competitors are doing in China, then you choose the right communication channel and the right social media platforms to be on. So I have divided into different quadrants. So one for B2C companies and one for B2B companies. So if you are a product directly to the Chinese consumers, as you can see, here are some social e-commerce channels such as Xiaohongshu and WeChat and Douyin. They started as a social media platforms, and they have implemented e-commerce functions into their platforms. Other social media platforms there, and then e-commerce, and then we've got the B2B section on social media platforms and e-commerce. I'm not going to go into too much detail about what each platform does, but understanding who the audience are in the platforms are really important to choose your right communication channels. So giving an example, Douyin, on their, they are more targeted towards the Gen Z and the millennial market, and in their e-commerce channels they tend to sell lower value products, so 100 RMB, and that will probably be the top tier. Whereas, you know, if you are selling a luxury item, a luxury product or a luxury brand, then perhaps Tmall will probably be a better channel for you, because there are luxury brands on the platform. So understanding who your customers are, then choosing the right platforms to be on. So here's an overview of the landscape. There are many other platforms that I haven't put it on there, but these are the key ones. So brand strategy. We've spoken about company, understanding what your company stands for, your vision, your mission, and your values, and then understand who your customers are in China, what your competitors are doing in China, and how you position differently towards your competitors, and understanding what the customer's key drivers are to really voice out on the brand strategy or the marketing strategy for your brand and company. And then choose the right communication channels and the e-commerce channels to reach out to your customers. So here are the 5 common mistakes that I have personally experienced. I think every company that you speak to will have different experiences when it comes to the mistakes or the experiences that I have seen. But here are the 5 common mistakes, in my opinion, are localization. Localization does not mean direct translation. Localization means to adapt to the local market, your consumers' behavior, and the culture. Think localization as trans creation. So adapting the content and the visuals and your products towards your consumers in China. Don't treat China as one market. China is a big market. It has 1.4 billion people. And each city, each province, those consumers are going to be very different to another province. So understanding who your customers are, where are they living, and then the behavior of your consumers. Know who your consumers are and the value. I keep banging on about this, but I feel this is one of the largest common mistakes that I have personally experienced and have seen brands do, is they think their target audience in their local market is going to be exactly the same. It might not be. Your target audience might be an older generation, or your target audience might be a younger generation. Do your research on who your consumers are. And Christina mentioned this in her opening. Don't underestimate the time, the resources, and the investment that you need to enter into China. I hear this time and time again. I only need 1% of the market. Well, you're not going to get that 1% if you don't know who your consumers are and if you don't know the market, right? So they're not going to buy from you. They're not going to be attracted to your products and services. So don't underestimate on how much time and money that you would probably need for the market, but also do your research and understand the role of the Chinese government. The Chinese government play a very strong impact in any business and any category that you are in. So don't ever underestimate the government's role when entering into the Chinese market. I think Uber is a great example of underestimating that. So once you understand your go-to market strategy, develop your brand, and then adapt to your Chinese market, and then learn on the right marketing channels and social media platforms to be on to communicate that to your consumers, then you will have a chance to building a sustainable brand. So I'm just going to talk about a few case studies and a few businesses that I have come across. The first brand or the first business, I haven't worked with them directly, but I know the agency that worked with them, and it is a club and entertainment brand from the US. and they were opening a club in Macau, although it's not China, but Macau has one of the largest outbound tourism group from China. I think in 2019 there were about 39 million Chinese entered into the Macau, and I'm going to show you why this brand didn't work. And the agents that I was talking about, they actually, I think they canceled their contract within 6 months with this client because they didn't see eye to eye. So what they failed was they duplicated the exact same experience they have across their brands, across their clubs in Europe and in US into China. So they misunderstood that their consumers are actually not the 25, 18 to 30-year-olds, the younger generation, right? That wants, really high energy. The choice of drinks are normally vodka and tequila. Their consumers in Macau were actually the high net worth individuals that goes to Macau to play, for entertainment, to really enjoy and relax. And understanding, they misunderstood on what their consumers want. High net worth individuals want privacy in a club. They do want the high energy kind of the clubbing experience, but they also wanted to have, like, for example, karaoke rooms where they can have intimate business conversations. And they don't drink vodka and tequila, they drink Hennessy. So they just duplicated exactly what they've done in the world into Macau. So they definitely got the experience and consumers wrong. And I think they closed down after 18 months of operation. Another case study I wanted to show you is a UK-based multi-brand beauty and skincare marketplace targeting Gen Z and millennials. They are doing extremely well in the UK. I consulted them 3 years after they wanted to enter into, they did their first marketing campaign into China, and they just kept spending money on marketing campaigns, and they didn't have a sustainable brand, and they didn't understand the consumers. So what they have learned from us was they underestimated how much resources and time and investment that actually need to build a holistic platform for their customers, right? So it's not just about screaming to your customers who we are, what we do, and what our products are, but it's really about providing a holistic, streamlined, and seamless experience for your consumers. So if you think about, like, if you are selling digitally towards your consumers, you have to think about the logistics solution, you have to think about customs and tax, you have to think about customer services. So they didn't provide that. And what we found was that when customers engage with them on WeChat and giving them feedback on what their experience were, those feedback went to the marketing agency, then went back to the brand or the client, and then the client answered back to the marketing agency and then translated to the customers. If you don't answer your customers' inquiries and questions within minutes in China, you are going to lose them. They don't have those patience, right? So if you are in a direct-to-consumer product, then you really need to understand what value you are providing your customers and how to provide that seamless experience. So when I consulted with them and really gave them a strategy plan, they definitely underestimated it and didn't think that they would need that much time and resources and investment into China. So definitely do your research first. To end the presentation, I wanted to recap what I have said on what rebrand, rebuild, and restart really mean. Do I really mean to rebuild your whole business? No, but rebrand is really about creating a brand strategy and adapting your content and communication channels towards your consumers. Rebuild is try to go back to a startup mentality and rebuild your business model and adapt to the local customers and behaviors and culture. You might need to rebuild like product SKUs or localize your product SKU, but you don't know until you actually know who your customers are. And don't think that just by doing a couple of marketing campaigns or don't think China is a short-term win. You will be wasting your time and your resources, right? If you are looking for a short-term win in China, it should be a long-term plan for your business. And then restart is being humble, being flexible, and being nimble to adapt to the market is really important. Listen to who your customer is, or listen to your partners, such as distributors. They would know who your customers are. Listen to them, and then being able to have the flexibility to adapt to the culture, that will provide a long-term success for your brand and for your business. So to sum up, there isn't a blueprint, or there isn't a checklist. If you do step 1 to 10, you will succeed, right? It's really about that, again, that startup mentality. Go to the market, understand your consumers, take your product to the consumers, gain feedback, go back and then change it up, and then go back to the market again. It's about understanding and really tailoring what you are offering to what the consumers want in China, and surround yourself with the right partners, the right channels, distributors, wholesalers, and even TP partners, right? And I think it is the 3rd or the 4th superpower in Christina's book, but it is surround yourself with the right partners and understanding. Get yourself involved in these like reputable resources. So both Christina and I are members of the China Bread and Business Council, CBBC. They are a fantastic resource. So get in touch with them, learn about what they do, really surround yourself with the right people, and speak to the partners that specialize in their field. What I can do, Christina can't do, vice versa. I can't do what Christina does. So speak to different people within this market and trying to understand a holistic view of the Chinese market. To end, as I have promised, I'm going to give you an overview about a solution that we have created. It's called Asbella Hub. Asbella Hub is a multi-brand channel offering a turnkey solution to niche brands, and our customer database and target audience are Chinese millennials and Gen Z customers in the tier 1 to tier 2 cities. So if you are a fashion or an accessory category, please do get in touch. I will share my contact details in the chat box, and I am happy to answer any questions, and I will give back the presentation to Christina.
Thanks, Annie. Before you stop your share screen, there are a couple of things I just wanted to highlight from my side in regards to your presentation, and just re-emphasize it. The first is, if those of you that are in the fashion accessories, I don't know if you do cosmetics. Do you do cosmetics, Annie?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
But
if you're in the
horizontal
fashion,
that we will be building, sorry.
Okay, so definitely if you're in the fashion accessory side, Asbella is a fantastic opportunity for you, because basically Annie does everything for you. It's a great way to test the market in terms of reaching these Chinese millennials and seeing how things are working. And the fact that she has this opportunity together with her brand strategy or brand development side of the business as well, it's basically killing 2 birds with 1 stone. So that's why I love it. I think it's a fantastic way to test the market before you want to move on further. The other thing that I just wanted to highlight was Annie mentioned that a customer was saying, yeah, Annie, I just want 1% of the market. Yeah, you want 1% today. And then once you get that 1%, what's your next goal? Do you want 2%? Or suddenly, do you want 5%? My motto for 2021, and it's my life motto, it's my work motto, is consistency will build momentum. If you're not consistent with your branding, with your brand development, with maintaining relationships with distributors or whomever, you will never build momentum in the Chinese market. Never.
Definitely.
You've got to have consistency, which is why I'm emphasizing so much the fact that people have to look at the financial resources, right? Like Annie said, one of the biggest mistakes is underestimating. Another thing, which is superpower number 2, and Annie has mentioned this throughout, is research. Who are your consumers? And are you maintaining data on that? Are you doing data mining? Are you having focus groups come in and try out your products, test your products? Are you actually getting feedback from your consumers? Customer service relationship is so key in China, and it has to be in the Chinese time zone. You can't have a customer relationship manager sitting in the UK or in the US who's catering to the Chinese market. It doesn't work. It simply does not. So are you maintaining all of these relationships? Are you looking at the data? Are you researching it? And are you doing it continuously? Because who knows if your consumers change over time, right? Today, it might be Chinese millennials, but who knows? What happens if it becomes an older generation, right? You don't know. I think the market is so huge in China that you don't know how your brand is going to evolve over time. That's what makes it so exciting. But that's also where you need the time resources and the financial resources to manage it, right? So I'm going to end it there. I'm going to stop my spiel. I will switch back to my presentation so we can start on the Q&A.
Definitely. And I wanted to add to that, Christina, about relationship, you were talking about mindset, right? So if you are a B2B company and you are solely dependent on your distributor or your wholesaler or your partner, that relationship is so important. You know, there is this thing called guanxi in Chinese, is really embed yourself with your partners over there. So understanding the culture, the way they do business is vital, because it's completely different here in Europe. And, you know, and don't underestimate the time that you need to build that relationship.
Exactly.
It's extremely important. Yeah.
So I've just added in the chat box my contact details. Annie, would you be so kind as to add yours as well? Yeah. And we are going to get going, for some reason, there we go. We're going to get going with the questions. So there's only one question that's popped in from Douglas, which is, Annie, based on the case study about the cosmetics company, did the cosmetics company not use any of the existing platforms?
No, they didn't. Sorry, let me rephrase that. They did. They used WeChat, but what they focused on was really creating a fantastic marketing campaign, and those marketing campaigns did extremely well, drove a lot of traffic to their WeChat store and to their website. But what they haven't implemented was everything else around the experience for their customers, right? So again, if you think about, well, what does digital experience mean? It means that when someone buys your product, you know, when they have a question, who do they ask? How long do they have to wait to get those answers? Reminder that Chinese customers do a lot of research before they buy something. Exactly. Yeah. So they will ask a lot of questions. And one thing that I keep banging on about with brands are like, you have to have a real person in China and in China to answer those questions. If you have a chatbot, you are going to lose your customer, right? So it's about building that experience. So yes, they did use a existing channel in China, which is WeChat, but what they have done really well was the marketing campaigns, but what they didn't do well was the experience around selling their product and services to the Chinese consumers.
There are no other questions that came in, so I'm going to touch a little bit on the questions that popped up in the registration forms. One of the questions was, if you do cross-border e-commerce, Annie, meaning that you don't set something up in China and all you're doing is you've got a shop on Tmall, you might have a TP that's managing that, and you're just doing direct sales, right? Will you have a different brand strategy for that type of business model versus something that is localized, i.e. you have a team on the ground in China?
No, because once you have developed your brand, like think of your brand as your personality. Once you have developed your personality, you won't present yourself in a certain way to one person than to another person, right? So consistency is very important. But one thing that I found or I experienced that brands mistaken is that the way they talk to their Western customers is exactly the way they speak to the Chinese customers, and that doesn't really resonate with the consumers. So to answer your question is, no, you will not have different branding strategy if you are on Tmall or offline. You will have the same branding strategy, but it's about localizing on what that brand strategy is for the Chinese market.
I think the question is around the fact that I think this person is making the assumption that if they are doing e-commerce from home, i.e. from the UK, from the US, from Australia, and they're formulating a cross-border e-commerce strategy, they don't have to do branding. They don't have to do any branding. Oh. Just because you are opening up a shop on Tmall and you're testing the market, doesn't mean you don't need a brand strategy, guys. How are you going to get the consumer to that shop? Just because you've got a shop doesn't mean consumers just, I don't know, nosy along and look at it. They have to be directed there.
Yeah.
Right? They have to be directed to that shop. I don't know if you want to add something, Annie. Go ahead.
Sorry, I misunderstood the question. Exactly right. You know, the World Wide Web is a big market. You can't just open a shop in Alibaba and hope for the best that the consumers will find you. If you think about Alibaba ecosystem, there are 60 million merchants on the Alibaba ecosystem. So imagine competing with 60 million. That's almost the same population as the UK. And, you know, if you are opening a store, what you tend to find is that you are competing for screen real estate, right? People in China are on their mobiles to shop. So the only real estate you have, I can't find my mobile, is this little screen here. If you are not on the first or second page, forget it. No one is going to find you. So it's about creating your brand and communicating that. Yes, it is important. It doesn't matter if you are in Australia, wherever in the world, if you are selling to Chinese consumers, then yeah, get it right. But there are also other things to like we call like the happy accidents, right? So your brand might already be activated in China because the Chinese travelers found your brand and they are talking about it in China, and you're not already in China yet. So I'll give you an example. As you can probably have known from my accent, I'm actually from Australia. So a good happy accident are the milk powders in Australia, right? They weren't in China, but because of the scandal of what has happened on the milk powders on the ground, that the Chinese consumers just flocked to these milk powders, and customs didn't even allow them to bring one can or whatever you call it into the thing. So if you are a happy accident, that's fantastic, but then understand how you optimize that opportunity. So going back to your question, if you are selling cross-border, it doesn't matter if you're selling cross-border in China or to your distributors, brand strategy and localizing your content and your marketing strategy.
It's fundamental. It's a foundation, basically. There is a question. I'm worried that I'm going to say the name Aransha. I hope I'm not saying that wrong. There are 3 questions in relation to Asbella. One,
Okay.
are you going to implement other categories like cosmetics, personal care in the future? 2, are you focused on US products, or are you also considering European niche products? And 3, is Asbella a cross-border e-commerce testing channel for niche brands? Maybe you can explain a bit more about Asbella.
Sure. So there are multiple questions. So let me, I'll tell you why I started Asbella, right? So I have worked with global brands and global companies or businesses that have big budgets when it comes to cross-border marketing or marketing in China, right? And when I came to Europe 3 years ago, what I discovered was the craftsmanship and the artistry that is embedded in the European culture, and I absolutely fell in love with it, right? So I've discovered brands. I'll just give you an example. I found a brand the other day. They are a vegan leather bag brand, right? Vegan leather meaning like they don't use animal materials. So you know what they use? Apple skin and cactus. Like, how cool are these niche brands? But what they don't have are the resources and the investment to go into China. So that's why we created Asbella. We are at the very early stage of Asbella. So right now we are only focused on UK products in the accessories category, but I would love to keep in touch with you and let you know about our development. Certainly our vision is to create a global platform for niche brands to sell into the Chinese market. And for better understanding, is Asbella a cross-border testing channel? No, it is not a testing channel. We want to build that partnership with brands to help you, well, yeah, to test the market, but we also want to help you grow in the market as well. So it's more of a long-term partnership than dump your product on our platform and hope for the best kind of a thing. So I will provide my calendar link and happy to set up a call and tell you more about Asbella.
The next question is from Ling Jiang, which is what's e-commerce different to the offline sell business?
What? Sorry?
So I guess what's the difference between e-commerce and traditional retail?
Well, e-commerce is how would I answer? What e-commerce for me is like more of a digital world, right? And it's the Chinese digital ecosystem, whereas offline is traditional offline channels or wholesaling channels. So there is a bit of a difference if you think about the online world and the offline world. And what is the best strategy for you, Linjiang? I don't know. It really depends on what you are offering and what your products and services and who your target clients are. But they are very different worlds. At the moment, you know, at the moment, you probably have heard of new retail, meaning providing an omni-channel experience of the offline world compared to the online world. So have a look at that. That's really interesting. So, you know, if you are offering a very specific or a unique product that clients definitely need to test and feel and try out, both worlds will probably be good for you. I don't know how to answer the question on how
or if you're a company like Lululemon and you're trying to create a community, you need that community to gather. And, you know, within Lululemon, it's people gathering in the stores for yoga sessions or, you know, whatever else might pop up. The experience that I've seen with clients of mine that are doing offline and online is that, number one, if you're doing offline and you have a retail store, make sure you're choosing the right locations where your consumers are going to be. So some might say, oh, well, you know, I can't afford the retail spaces in Shanghai, Shenzhen, Beijing, Guangzhou, so I'll go to tier 2. But if your consumers are not in the tier 2, then don't go at all, right? There's nobody who's telling you that you have to have a retail store or a flagship store in order to be successful in China. okay? And if you can't afford the rental prices in the big cities, which are getting higher and higher, then just don't do it. Place your focus and your energy on something that does work. And one of the things that Annie was saying in her presentation at the end was, you've got to be flexible. So one of my clients, this was the case study I was mentioning yesterday, his distributor was in Tianjin. And when the distributor decided to retire, they decided to stay in Tianjin because the staff were there. They then decided to continue with the retail store, which in my opinion was, why do you have one retail store in China and it's in Tianjin? Like, and you're a luxury leather accessories brand. And lo and behold, now 2 years later, they're actually considering of shutting it down. The dilemma is they're in breach of contract with the mall. So they're going to have to pay out penalties, but nothing's coming into the store. So you've really got to evaluate. This is why Annie and I work so well together, because I look at the finances and she's looking at the brand strategy, and we have to see what makes sense for every client, right? You've got to make sure you've got the financial resources to initiate whatever you're going to initiate, and make sure you can maintain it so that you're building momentum. The next question is from AC, which is, what would the approximate percentage be on branding and performance marketing when you want to start selling in China? What comes first?
This is on a very personal experience level that I am answering this question, is because that every person will have different experience. For me personally, I think branding comes first. Is really developing on your personality, and then you do the marketing. Then you go out to your customers and go, hey, we are here. This is what we are offering. This is our value to you, right? So I think for me, branding comes first and then marketing. In terms of the split, well, again, it really depends on your product and services. But it also, I would say that understand what your budget is and talk to the right partners, and then they will be able to plan out for you on what percentage you should spend on branding and what percentage you should spend on marketing, and then other channels, right? So it's really doing that homework and the research first. So hopefully that answers your question, Asima. I know that's Anne.
I would just add a point there, which is, now I've lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, I just wanted to rephrase how you're saying it, Annie, for the audience out there, is you've got to build a reputation in China. So when you're going in, you've got to build a strong reputation, which then leads into a strong marketing campaign, which then leads to actual sales. I mean, that's how if I was going to start in China, I wouldn't be like, I'm going to bring a 40-foot container of product to China and we'll wing it. You know, we'll create a branding. We'll see how it works out, especially if you're in a sector where that is perishable and then it goes to waste, right? But on the other side of the coin, again, with a client of mine, this happened on 11/11, which is the Singles Day, November 11th. Their experience in 2020 was, because they're startups, was that they did not imagine the amount of sales they were going to get. So this comes back to my point about, yeah, you only want 1% of the pie, but what happens if you get 2% without actually calculating for it?
Yeah.
Right? And then the worst part is you've got no stock on the ground. So you've got orders coming in and you've got nothing on the ground. You've got nothing to facilitate. Then delivery time doesn't work because you need product to go to China, right? So are you going to pay for air freight? It's a decision you got to make, right? It has to get through customs. I mean, the lead time is going to increase, obviously. So when you are, I don't know, it's just such a fine balance you have to make between inventory on the ground. I feel that people who are already producing in China have a greater flexibility because they have product on the ground already because it's being manufactured there. But if you're not producing in China, you really have to have this fine balance of knowing how much should be on the ground, especially in periods of peak season like 11/11, which has now gone from being it's the Singles Day, but has gone from being one day to a 3-week promotional period leading up to the one day.
Yeah.
Which is phenomenal, right? And just knowing that you have to make that balance between, having stock on the ground, being able to service those clients, having those customer service relationships, and having that full supply chain kind of all closed up, and there's no hole in it.
Can I also add to that, Christina?
Yeah.
Do a competitor benchmarking, right? See what your competitors have done in the last Singles Day. See what sales they generated. Then it will give you an idea. Okay, well, how much?
A base. Right.
Exactly. So definitely speak to the right partners. Do your research on
So
the whole market.
Let's touch on that a little bit, Annie. Right?
Okay.
We're emphasizing a lot on research. How do you find out who your consumers are? Like what are the research methodologies in this world in relation to e-commerce where you would find the data, or how do you find the data, and who finds it for you?
Right. So market research, like the traditional market research is really good. So I'll give you an example with Asbella, right? So right now we are activating the brands from the UK. So we are speaking to, and remember, our core market are 60% females, 40% males, and then Gen Z and millennials, well educated in tier 1 cities, right? So that's our consumer. So okay, well, where are they? If I can't go into China, can I activate these brands from the UK? So I am speaking to KOL influencers, Digos here in the UK, get them to test the product. How do you feel? What do you think? Get their feedback. And then remember, they have some of these KOLs have like 30,000 followers on Xiaohongshu. So if they like a product, they're going to recommend it to their friends, and then that's how we are activating Asbella. So other traditional methods are marketing research companies. I know I work with one over in Shanghai. They have methodology on really getting to know the market for your product and services, and also and speak to partners, right? They might have already worked with a similar category to what you are in, so they will be able to tell you what the consumers want. So those are the things that I can think of. I don't know if you want to add to that, Christina.
I mean, I guess a simple one would be go on Tmall yourself, set up an account, and look at your competitors on there. And I think on the actual shops of your competitors, there are data statistics that are open to the public as well. Obviously, you need to be able to read Chinese and be able to follow through on how Tmall works. But if you don't want to do that aspect, you could also have somebody who does it for you. But I just did a very short video today on mindset, and Annie touched on that just now, which I love. We all can't get into China right now. I'm also confined outside of China. So what are you going to do to get your data, to understand who your consumer is, and to push forward with your e-commerce strategy, right? So I love, Annie, that you're going out to Chinese millennials that are sitting in the UK who can't get back to China themselves and have them test the products and get feedback. They're perfect testimonials, right? You can also get companies in China to do that for you. I mean, we are living in a world of outsourcing, guys, and delegating, because we can't do the work ourselves, right? And if you don't empower your partners to do some of this work for you, you're not going to get anywhere. You're on this webinar series because you're interested to develop an e-commerce strategy. But if you don't take that step to do some of the outsourcing that's required, because you can't get there yourself, you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to have to wait until this pandemic is over and borders are open. And I think that's a loss of a fantastic opportunity. We all should have been in China 20 years ago to grab the 10%. Exactly. So I think, in the end of the day, you're going to have to change your mindsets, and in order to push forward, either outsource or figure out think outside of the box in terms of how you are going to get data, push forward with your e-commerce supply chain and whatnot. AC has another question, which is, China has become very skilled in producing all kinds, that was going up, of producing all kinds of products, and that has increased competition for international brands, and the quality is high, and they also do branding well. So how do you advise an international brand on that dilemma, as the international brand products are in many cases higher? So basically, what would you do if you're competing with the local Chinese brands? Do you have to sell at a lower price, or do you have to do different types of branding strategies?
Again, I have to go back, understanding what your customers are, right? So if you have a look at the example that I've given over the presentation on the condiment, what they did was actually decrease the size of their product and sell it at the same price as their European product, which means that it gives an emotional drive to their customers. Is when the customers buy their product, they feel that this product is more prestigious, right? So it really depends on your products and services, and what are the drivers of your consumers, and then assess if you need to, number one, localize your product, and then two, localize your lost my train of thought, but localize your product and pricing, as well as the content. Does that answer?
I would also just add that I base this on my own team. So these are Shanghainese people. They love foreign brands because it's different from the local brands. It's still a made in UK, made in US, made in Canada, even though it might be manufactured in China, it's still a US brand. It's still a UK brand. The innovativeness, I don't know if that's a word, the innovation behind the product is there compared to maybe the local brands. But we are competing in a world where we've got Chinese brands and international brands that are in a big market. And like I said, if you only want 1% of the pie, it's doable. You just have to make sure you've got the right strategy behind it, and tell people why should they be buying your product. I mean, it's exactly the same how the local companies are doing the branding. They're telling the consumers, this is why you should buy my brand. Why buy my product, buy my service, or whatever else it might be.
Don't assume that because you are a 100-year-old European brand that Chinese customers will love you. It's not the case at all. You still have to put in the research. I read a case study the other day about Pampers when they first went into China. Pampers as in nappies for babies, right? They went into China, and the brand strategy is nappies for babies at a cheap price. That's the brand strategy. But what they didn't realize was that the Chinese didn't use nappies. They used this pants where it has the opening. I don't know if they still
have the holes. Yeah, they still have them, especially for winter months.
Exactly. I know it sounds very.
So wait, sorry, just to explain, they have these onesies in winter that are very thick onesies, and there is a butthole open. So the butt still freezes in winter, but there's the hole. They just put the baby on the potty or in the toilet directly, or clean up the mess.
Never let me wear those, but and then after they understood about the market, and what they've done was they changed their content, and the branding strategy is, wear these nappies, your baby will sleep better. Then the Chinese customers got it, and now Pampers is a very big market. I don't remember how big the nappy market is in China, but it's really about adapting to the Chinese, localize your culture.
AC, you were saying, is it okay? So it is okay to be produced in China and designed in EU or US? I don't think you have a choice. Most companies produce in China. Or if they don't produce in China, they certainly produce in India, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, and certainly most of the time not in a home country. I think unless it's a very niche industry, you're always going to find that part of the manufacturing supply chain will be in Asia. So yeah, I mean, it's about creating a strategy where you say, instead of made in US, you say it's designed in the US, which in many cases it would be, or designed in Germany, or designed in the UK, or whatever it is, right? All right, well, that's all that's come in. We'll hang out for another 5 minutes, but just to finish up, just to let you know, we got one more session, which is tomorrow, where we're going to have Ryan Malloy from Redfern Digital pop in. Redfern Digital pop in to basically say how to e-commerce in China. And if you haven't registered for that, you can go to woodburnglobal.com/events to register. Annie, thank you so much for joining. It's been an absolute delight. Like I said, Annie and I will just stay on for another 5 minutes in case other people have more questions. But thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. This was really exciting.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and I wish everyone a fabulous afternoon. Oh, and remember the recording, I will send out an email to everybody. I will also copy in Annie on that email in case you would like to then email her directly.
Yeah.
Take care, everyone, and bye.